First off, before we even start, punk or Roman?
Huh? Oh,
Punk or Roman?
I've been struggling with that one.
I am too. That's why
I'm struggling with that. I'm leaning punk. I'm okay with Roman though. I'm struggling.
It's gonna be Roman.
Although, for me these days, I just watch and enjoy and not.
That's where I am too.
Yeah.
Have to do a little icebreaker real quick. Don't want to be nervous. All right. So first of all, thank you for your time.
Absolutely.
We're sitting here in March 2026. It's clearly the honeymoon phase of the 2024 sales tax has transitioned into the hard reality of execution. Mm-hmm. You're overseeing $2.07 billion budget this year that balances a $100 million gap with the bold vision of 1 million residents. Mm-hmm. Now, we're Milwaukeeans. That's a lot of people here. Mm-hmm. Okay? From the 25 million in new vision, the new Vision Zero infrastructure is hitting our streets this spring, to the 3,800 lead lines being pulled out of the ground. The city is in a state of a massive physical and fiscal transition. I want to go ahead and start with a few questions about how all of this is going and where you want to go with this. So let's start here. What does it look like in practice right now, and where do you think the city is making its most progress at?
Well, I think the city is in a really good, strong position. When I was elected mayor in 2022, of course, I took office in 2021. I knew that I needed to change the relationship that the city had with state government. It had been broken for many, many years prior to my election, and I knew that if the city was going to be in a position to succeed and not end up being in the same predicament that Detroit found itself in, right, having to declare bankruptcy and being insolvent and all that, I needed to strengthen that relationship. And so I said I would have a cot in the Capitol. Okay. And that's exactly what I did, working in a bipartisan fashion with, the Republicans that control the state legislature and have since, the 2010 election. And of course, our Democratic governor. And this was my thing. My office is nonpartisan, right, because there's no such thing as, Republican garbage or Democratic snow. All of it needs to get collected or picked up in some form or fashion. So I don't operate that way. I serve everybody. But when it comes to the state legislature and state government, I can only deal with what's there. Right. I have to deal with what's there. So I could sit on my hands and complain about what's going on, or I can work to actually solve the issues. And so that's exactly what I did. And the work that we were able to do for the first time in many, many years put the city in a position to get an increase in shared revenue, right, which is a boon and good for the city. It put us in a position to have a local sales tax, as you referenced, right, the 2% sales tax for the city of Milwaukee, putting us in line with the vast majority of large American cities. Right. Virtually every other large city in the United States of America has a municipal sales tax. Okay. And a lot of people who are Milwaukeeans, they go other places. You go down to shop on Michigan Avenue in Chicago. You go to some other favorite cities that folks go to, whether it's Dallas or Atlanta or Washington D.C. You name it. There's a sales tax, a municipal sales tax that folks are paying. So we implemented that here so that we'd be in a position to preserve city services, right, things that people want to see. Folks want police, they want fire, they want city employees who are going out there each and every single day, collecting the leaves, collecting the recycling, collecting the trash, right, and all those things. That's what the 2% sales tax helped us to be able to ensure that we're able to continue to provide for residents of the city of Milwaukee. So I feel really, really good about that. In terms of lead service laterals, you had mentioned, we started removing those back in the 20-teens. It was roughly 1,000 per year or so under the previous administration. When I came into office, working with President Joe Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris's administration, receiving American Rescue Plan Act dollars, we've been able to accelerate the removal of lead service lines. So it went from roughly 1,000 lead service lines under the previous mayor and previous administration under my administration to about 2,500, then about 3,000. Last year we celebrated the 10,000th lead service line removed out of Milwaukee. And this year we've continued the pace. We have continued to train our workforce. And we're on pace to remove 5,000 lead service lines from Milwaukee, which is good. So I feel good.
We definitely need those
Yep.
gone. A lot of people don't understand how that lead is affecting us physically.
Yep.
You emphasize economy, growth, and job creation. What kind of jobs are you focused on bringing to Milwaukee, and how are you prepared the residents across for this opportunity?
Yeah, I want to bring every single kind of job that we possibly can muster in Milwaukee. We have a strong water sector in Milwaukee. We're sitting on, Lake Michigan, the Great Lakes generally, it's 20% of the world's fresh water, right? It is a commodity. It is a resource. And I think it's something that's going to be, over time, as the climate continues to change, something that's attractive to people all over the country and all over the world. I don't want to export that. I don't think it should be exported. If people want to benefit from that, which everybody's got to drink water, water's got no enemies, folks going to have to come here, right? So I want to be able to grow water jobs, but advanced manufacturing, healthcare jobs, tourism, hospitality and tourism, I think is a boon for this city. When people come here, when people see our city, they fall in love with it. They really, really do. Many of them, they've gone to Chicago, but they haven't taken that trek and come a little bit north of that. When they do get here and they get their feet on the ground, they're blown away by Milwaukee. And so the more that we're able to have tourism that happens here, I think that creates more opportunities for jobs in that sector. So one of the things that two things that we've done over the course of the time that I've been mayor is vie for large-scale conventions. We had the Republican National Convention, full-scale convention that put this city in the living rooms and TV screens of everybody across the U.S., across the world. That's a great thing. We made an investment in our cruise ship dock. So we've been bringing thousands and thousands of people doing Great Lakes cruising here. They stay at our hotels, they go to our shops, they go to our restaurants, they spend money, basically is what I'm saying. And that creates jobs in the tourism space. And I want to grow that. And this year, we are scheduled to have a banner year for Great Lakes cruising in Milwaukee. More cruise ships than we've ever had before. More passengers coming here, spending time here, spending money here, creating jobs here than ever before. I'm super excited about it.
I'm excited about that too. We want their money to come here. And
I do. Exactly.
All right. So let's pivot a little bit here. So you spoke about the upbringing before in the past of Milwaukee's challenging neighborhoods. Common Council recently overrode your 2026 budget, vetoes to increase pay for city workers and expand Sunday library hours. Mm-hmm. How do you reconcile your living experience with the need for fiscal discipline when the council pushes for more immediate community spending?
Yeah, for me, the way that I try to operate is, handling the city budget the way that I handle my own budget at home. As a matter of fact, just this morning, I got, kind of yelled at by my insurance, homeownership, vehicle insurance. They said, "You've overpaid. We can't take your money. Like, you are caught up beyond what you ought to be." Right. Just because I try to make sure that I pay my bills. Right. And stay on top of that stuff. I want to do the same thing for the city budget. Okay. I want to make sure that we're fiscally responsible, fiscally prudent, and that is how we best serve taxpayers, in my opinion. So the budgets that I put out, they're always balanced budgets. We'll make difficult decisions in order to get there, but that's always going to be the product. State law demands that, and that's what I produce to the city council every single time. I'm interested in making sure that there's innovative service delivery to the people of Milwaukee. I want to see that too. Those are the things that I work to produce from the budgets that I give over to the city council as well. So we'll continue to do that. Certainly there's going to be some disagreements between the executive and legislative branch. That's normal. It's healthy, that tension that happens there, not just at the city level, but at the county level, the state level, the federal level. I mean, that's something that's going to happen. But the vast majority of things we agree on. The council says they want to expand library hours. Well, guess what? I do too. I just want to make sure that we're able to pay for it and be able to sustain it in the years to come. Like that's sometimes where the difference is.
Right. That's definitely good. All right. I want to move over to housing affordability. Because in order for you to be able to have 1 million residents, you got to make sure people can afford to live here.
So absolutely.
All right. So with housing affordability continue to be a major challenge. What's your strategy to expand affordable housing while maintaining strong and stable neighborhoods?
Yeah, so 2026, I've declared to be the year of housing in Milwaukee, and I'm super excited about it. As a matter of fact, my State of the City address talks about the state of housing in Milwaukee, the things that we're doing to address housing here in the city. So we're doing a number of things that we've implemented over the course of the last year or so in housing, and including this year. So how are we making housing more affordable, where there's a supply and demand issue here in Milwaukee? We have a very short supply and very high demand. Again, as I mentioned before, when people come here, they visit here, they discover Milwaukee, people want to be here. Mm-hmm. People want to be here. I had a conversation just the other day, as a matter of fact, with a news reporter a former news reporter that, they get bounced around all over the country. When this particular reporter came here, they said that this was home and I didn't need to move anymore. And that's the case for so many people who visit Milwaukee and, come to call this place home. But how are we addressing the issue around the supply of housing? Right. So what we did when I came into office was work to update our zoning code, or lay the groundwork for doing that. Okay. This is the first time in basically in two mayors, which in Milwaukee is a long time because we have mayors for a while, generally speaking. So not since John Norquist have we had, that's the name you remember, right? That's what I'm saying, exactly. So we haven't had an update to our zoning code since then. Okay. And so I worked to update that to make sure that we are laying the groundwork to build more homes, more types of homes, and increase the supply of homes in Milwaukee. We continue to make investments in affordable housing. We've got new innovative programs like our backbone TID, tax incremental district, that we've unveiled working with some of our community partners, building affordable homes in neighborhoods across the city. There's TIF districts, backbone TID districts going up in places like the Amani neighborhood, other places like that. We're working with Habitat for Humanity. We've got our Homes MKE initiative where we take city-owned foreclosed properties. We take federal funds, invest into those properties, working with local developers, usually women, minority developers, flip those homes and then sell them at affordable rates to people who stay in those homes as owner occupants. Okay. We've got another program that we've started because my life experience, yours, I know some others probably have experienced the same sort of thing. You go to college, you get your first good job, right? And everybody thinks, oh, now you're good. You don't need any more support. You don't need any more assistance. You make $1 more than what, whatever arbitrary limit it is. Right. And then they take everything away. Well, the truth of the matter is that, and I experienced this, that's not the case. No. Just because I got that first good job doesn't mean that I've arrived. I'm working to arrive, but I'm not there yet. And so we're addressing that. So for the first time in the city's history, in my administration, what we're doing is making an investment in not just affordable housing, but what's also called workforce housing. So that when your kids, grandkids, young professionals graduate from college and they're faced with choices about where they're going to go for work, and they're looking at Chicago, they're looking at Washington, D.C., they're looking at Atlanta, they're looking at Dallas, Houston, some of these other hotspots. I want them to see that there are opportunities for you to have good quality, stable housing and an abundance of that at an affordable price, and you can do that right here in Milwaukee. So we're doing all those things.
You definitely need to do that. I like that. All right. So since we're still in the housing, let's talk about the housing element, formerly known as growth in MKE, aims for higher densities. How are you navigating the tensions between citywide growth and those not in my backyard concerns that are established by neighborhood groups who are fear of losing the traditional character of their blocks?
Yeah, and that's a great question because people tend to have that. I mean, we've seen that over the course of the time that we were talking about growing Milwaukee, which became the housing element. That's what I was referencing before when I was talking about the zoning update that hadn't been changed on the citywide level here since John Norquist was the mayor. But what we've done throughout the entire process, whether it was growing MKE or now the housing element, is reach out to folks, reach out to neighborhoods, reach out to stakeholders across the city, and have conversations about what this looks like. And what we're seeking to do, and I think that people generally would be acceptable to this, is working to make sure that many of those improvements happen on commercial corridors, places with transit lines, things like that, where you're supposed to have higher density.
Right.
You know what I mean? Where folks are supposed to be, because that creates vibrancy, that creates a density of folks who have dollars that they can spend at stores on those commercial corridors, which creates jobs for the people who live on the other sides of those commercial corridors. So like this is all connected. It's all connected. That's what I see, and that's why we're having the conversation with folks around the city around housing element.
All righty. So let's move to something that was brought to me, so I had to make sure I asked it. All right, with $20 million in the new federal funding for 67 safety projects, that means that some busy roads are changing to have fewer lanes. EI over by, right now, the stadium. Some people are worried that this will cause more traffic or just push faster, unsafe driving into the streets. What would you say to them to kind of let them know, like, we're good?
Well, this is what I would say. We have focused in on my administration on making sure the roads are safe for everybody.
Right.
When I first came into office, reckless driving was literally out of control. It was out of control. And I'm not saying that we've solved it. I'm not saying it's a panacea right now. But what I am saying is that we have significantly calmed reckless driving in Milwaukee. There's still work to do, but it is a far cry from what it was when I first stepped behind that desk and sat down in that chair. As a matter of fact, I remember the first document that I signed was a document saying that reckless driving is a public safety crisis and corralling all of city government to address it. And when you look at the data that we've been able to mine after we've made physical improvements to the roadway, whether that's narrowing lanes, whether that's adding pinned on curb extensions, whether that's adding actual protected bike lanes, the amount of crashes that happen there has plummeted. The amount of speeding on those streets has plummeted. And what that means is that people, and usually, the people who, unfortunately, are the victims of, vehicular crashes that end up dying are people who look like you and me. They're typically black people and people of color. So we're making the streets safer for everybody. So take a little time, maybe leave a little bit earlier. But my goal is to make the streets safer for people. And we're prioritizing that safety over speed. And I'm going to do that every day.
Well, thank you for having this conversation with me, but this is a two-part situation here. So I need to go ahead and tag my partner, Savannah Burks, in, so we can go ahead and continue this conversation.
Okay, sorry about that.
No, you are okay. Well, since we are talking about health and wellness on my end, I would like to present you a Lupus Has No Face wellness guide, Living Well with Lupus, and a journal.
Thank you.
Okay, you are absolutely welcome, and I signed it for you as well.
Oh, thank you.
And you got a pen there too.
So. Oh, look at that. Okay.
There you go.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. I'll keep those. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. So I'm not going to take up too much of your time because I know how important your time is. So we're going to jump right into it, okay? As the mayor of Milwaukee, how do you define your role when it comes to protecting the health and wellness being of residents, especially those living with chronic illness and invisible illness like lupus?
Yeah, when people are living with, invisible illnesses or invisible, disabilities or things like that, I think it's incumbent upon leaders in government, myself included, to find ways to make sure that they can, fully live their life in a productive way. As a matter of fact, just a couple of weeks ago, working in collaboration with the city council, we sought to implement a program called Culture City so that individuals who have sensory issues, things like that, invisible challenges, can, still participate fully in life here in the city. So the city of Milwaukee would be joining a number of organizations that people already know and enjoy, whether it's Pfizer Forum, whether it's the county zoo, whether it's all the events that are happening at the Baird Center, making sure that we are an inclusive place for people who suffer from these invisible illnesses or disabilities that a lot of folks just looking at somebody, generally you don't even know that they're going through it, but they're there.
Yes. And that's very important to know that because I didn't know that. Mm-hmm. So I'm glad that we are having this interview so I can bring awareness to let people know that there are places outside like that that's available to us for these reasons. Mm-hmm. How does the Milwaukee Health Department currently address long-term illness, not just immediate problems, health crisis?
Yeah, the Milwaukee Health Department is a phenomenal, outstanding resource for people in the city of Milwaukee to go to in order to get access to the care that they need, and not just the care that they need, but I mean sometimes there are going to be areas in which the health department itself is not the subject matter expert, but can help to direct citizens in Milwaukee to other providers, other health agencies that can help citizens with the issues that they may be facing. So it's an incredible resource, is what I'm trying to say, for people in Milwaukee to have access to, that can point them in the directions that they need or help them solve the problems that they may have themselves.
And again, that is so great because there's so many jewels here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin that we don't know about unless we speaking to people like you.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I mean, even speaking of the health department and some of the things that they do that a lot of people may not be aware of, that we want to raise some awareness on. When you look at immunizations, for kids, especially in the political climate that we find ourselves in now in our country, right? I mean, you've got the Secretary of Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., under President Donald Trump, who is suggesting that children shouldn't get immunized. Well, if you don't get immunized, then you're going to see an increase in preventable diseases like the measles, which is starting to rage again across the United States. The health department, before kids goes to school in Milwaukee, is an incredible partner with helping to make sure that kids, many times not only get a backpack, but they also get caught up on their immunizations. And that's something I want to see continue to happen in the city of Milwaukee and the state of Wisconsin.
That is wonderful too, because so many people just live and not understand and not knowing why they're doing what they're doing. So if something sounds good to their ears, that's what they tend to run with. So that's good that you guys are educating them onto why they need this. What steps are being taken to ensure early diagnosis and access to care in undeserving communities? Yeah,
that's actually a great question, and one that I actually just had a conversation on just the other day, especially as it relates to a public health issue that has been paramount in Milwaukee over the course of the last number of years. I referenced this in the last conversation as it relates to lead exposure, and especially for kids. So in Milwaukee, because we've got an older housing stock, we're working to improve some of that in our year of housing initiatives here, but we still do have an older housing stock, which means that some of those properties will have lead-based paint. And by and large, that is the primary source for lead exposure, poisoning for kids in Milwaukee. But you asked a question about how do we essentially work in a preventative sort of manner. And on this issue of highest importance, especially for kids under 6 years old who are most susceptible to lead poisoning, what we do in Milwaukee is via our health department, tell families here to make sure that kids get tested on an accelerated schedule. So it's 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, and then once, every year until a kid is 5 or 6 years old, just so that we're staying in front of what those health challenges would be.
Okay, I want to piggyback off that for a second. So that is implemented. So what about the landlords or the people that own these houses that, they're renting out with the lead and the peeling off of walls? Are they held to a standard? Yeah,
they are. And no, certainly there's way more work to do on that. Obviously. And as a matter of fact, the city attorney just recently filed a lawsuit against the holder of a number of properties in Milwaukee because of some of those living conditions. So my administration is helping to abate some of those things via the health department, as a matter of fact, to make sure that if there's lead exposure in the house, that we remediate that lead is stripped out, that it's covered up so you don't have that. The health department worked incredibly close at my direction with Milwaukee Public Schools just last year when we found out that some kid was lead poison, and we were tracing it to see where that kid was poisoned at, and it wasn't at home, it wasn't at grandma's house. it happened to be at that kid's particular school. And so we went through and I assigned one of my chief lead experts at the city of Milwaukee to Milwaukee Public Schools to make sure that all the schools in MPS were lead safe. So whether it's programs like that, the programs that we work with properties to make sure that that lead is sealed up so that you don't have further lead exposure, or the work that the city attorney is doing to hold, landlords accountable, we're working to make sure that the community is safe for everybody, especially as it relates to lead exposure.
That is so beautiful. Again, people just do not know the steps to take to understand that it is help out there. So that's wonderful to know. Are these opportunities for nonprofit like Lupus Has No Face to receive city support, grants, or partnerships to expand community impact?
Yeah, the many ways we work with organizations like yours via our community development grants administration. Now, again, I mentioned the political environment that we find ourselves in nationally. Some of the long-time ties between the local government and the federal government are kind of up in the air, just like everything really right now with the current presidential administration, President Donald Trump. But when there's stability there, as it was in the previous administration, and my hope is with the administration that follows President Trump's, we'll be back in a position where we're able to continue to foster those great working relationships and supporting organizations that are on the ground doing good work.
Thank you so much, and I know that the people will love to hear that because, like I said, they just don't know, right?
Yeah,
they just don't know. We're going to go ahead and move on to community and collaboration. What does a strong partnership between the City of Milwaukee grassroots organization looks like to you?
I talk about partnership all the time. Like literally all the time. I think people probably are sick and tired of me saying that word. But I think it's important because I recognize that just because I may be the highest elected official, in the city, doesn't mean that I have all the answers, and it doesn't mean that I have all the power. Ultimately, people have the power. Ultimately, people have the largest voice, even bigger so than mine. And so when we're trying to make positive change in the neighborhoods across Milwaukee, many times I have to rely on stakeholder organizations that have a proven track record on the ground in neighborhoods that people trust in order to move the ball forward. And so that's where I think the city and organizations like the ones you're talking about can partner in the best possible way to make a solid impact that improves the lives of people on the ground in Milwaukee. Some of that is happening right now with the partnership that we have with Safe and Sound and the neighborhood organizations that they serve, all over Milwaukee, right? Folks, I can tell you, I travel to every neighborhood across Milwaukee all the time. And there are certain things that everybody wants. It doesn't matter if you live in a big house and you're, extremely wealthy on the east side. It doesn't matter if you live in my old neighborhood on 19th and Center, or if you live in the neighborhood that I went to high school at down in Bayview. Everybody wants safe quality of life. They want safety in their neighborhoods. They want peaceful, quiet enjoyment of the place they call home. And an organization like Safe and Sound, working with various neighborhood groups in all those places, are working to make sure they have the resources necessary, the connections necessary in order to achieve those things. So that is where government and neighborhood groups and organizations in our city can work together to better improve the quality of life of folks in Milwaukee.
Perfectly said. How open is your administrator to collaborating with organizations that are already doing the work in the community?
Oh, extremely so. I mean, again, it's partnership. It's partnership. I'm going to bring up, public safety here again, just because it's something that everybody cares about. I think it's, a universal thing. Some neighborhoods have a particular, thing that they're focused on. Some have, another thing that is more prevalent for them. But all the neighborhoods want to be safe, right? And so, talking about, our openness to working with organizations on a particular issue using this one since it is so universal. I mean, the Department now of Community Wellness and Safety does exactly that. It works directly with groups and neighborhoods across the city in order to prevent violence and therefore then increase safety in the city. And that's, part of my two-pronged strategy on public safety in Milwaukee. It's accountability, yes, for people who do bad things. And I think the people of Milwaukee agree with me on that. Because when I watch news stories and I see them, grieving after somebody that they love has been hurt or worse yet killed, and they go out and release, balloons and they give statements to the media, ultimately what they're asking for is justice. And they're asking for justice because they don't want the person or people who hurt their family member to be free or feel like they're free enough to go and hurt somebody else's. So they want justice. But the other side of that is prevention. And I don't want for people to make those decisions in the first place. That's why, this is to your point, partnerships with organizations on the ground, like the ones we have via our Department of Community Wellness and Safety, make the difference. That's why we're so focused on that. And my administration is extremely open to it.
I think that's wonderful because the people that's on the ground get to see way more than the people that are in office, right?
Yeah,
so the partnerships makes a best solution for everyone. Mm-hmm. And we're going to go ahead to moving on to closing. What message would you like to give to an individual who is battling every day that the world cannot see?
I think I would give the same sort of advice that I just gave to some of our young men from basketball teams in Milwaukee that recently won state championships. We had two schools in Milwaukee, a public school and a private school, McDowell Montessori, the Juneau Pioneers, and Wisconsin Lutheran High School, the Vikings over there. They won their respective divisions in the WIAA tournament. And what I told those young men is that, look, you're going to face adversity, you're going to face challenges, but you've already proven that if you work hard, if you stay focused, you stay disciplined, then there's nothing that you can't solve. There's no wall that you cannot run through. You've already shown that at the highest level. So regardless of what challenge you may be facing, if you do the same, there's nothing that can stop you. And outside of that, just personally, I tell kids, and I visit a ton of schools each and every single school year in Milwaukee public schools, and I tell those kids the same pieces of advice that folks have told me as I was growing up, or I learned from them as I was growing up. And there are five. One from my mom, who showed me to never give up. Things are going to be challenging, but don't fall to the wayside. Pick yourself up. Keep on going through it. My stepdad said that if you do good, you get good, meaning that you do good things will come to you. Just be kind to folks. My dad, my father, he told me to get off the block, experience different things, and that took me from the neighborhoods that I lived in Milwaukee. And I could run through the whole list of it, but I might run out your show because I lived in so many places. But it took me from the East Coast to the West Coast to the Gulf Coast to South America to Europe, all over the places, and then back here because I followed that advice from my friend Victor, who is an immigrant, and I met when I was 14 years old, and I'll be 40 later this year, and we're still this tight. He showed me and told me that when you build bonds of brotherhood, with folks, no matter what they look like, no matter what language they speak, that can be good for you and for, the entire community. He's primarily spoke Spanish and couldn't pronounce my name when I first met him because the R's kept rolling off.
Yeah.
And then from Jacqueline, who used to run the YMCA, was a friend and mentor of mine too. He said, don't chase dollars, find something that you're passionate about,
Yes.
Find some purpose and go chase that. Follow those things, it won't fail you.
Well, thank you so much for all of your advice and all of the gems and jewels you dropped.
No, thank you.
You're welcome.